You're listening to episode 73, Should Kids Go to Funerals? Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. This is Katie Taylor, Certified Child Life Specialist from Child Life On Call. This 12-minute talk is in response to the question we get a lot: should kids, especially young kids, go to funerals? So I talk about this with my friend Lauren, who is a professor in the field of child life, and we will get right into it. First, I'm going to have Lauren introduce herself to you all so you can get to know her really quickly, and then we will jump into our topic.
My name is Lauren. I currently am working as an adjunct professor in an early childhood care and education department at a technical college. I started my clinical role in Savannah, Georgia, and I worked most of my time was in pediatric intensive care, and I spent a lot of time in general pediatrics and in the pediatric emergency department. Through that experience, I learned that I really enjoy working with students at the college level, which sort of led me to my professorship experience. So I'm really enjoying that. I also help coach child life students on the side. So I help with internships and practicum interviews and applications. So I've really enjoyed meeting a ton of child life people from all over and just helping them through that process. I'm also loving working with Katie on the Child Life On Call podcast. So it's been really fun to learn another side of child life and another place where our skills are used. So I live with my husband and my dog in Athens, and we are really excited to be here and own our first home now. So.
Oh, well, on behalf of Katie and the Child Life On Call podcast, we're also glad that you're a part of us now. Today, our 12-minute topic, we're going to be talking about basically preparing kiddos for funerals and should young kids go to funerals. And I kind of have my opinion about it, but I would love to hear what you think. And let's just start with a few different age groups. Let's start with those like toddler to young preschool. Tell me what you think about that age group going to a funeral.
I love this question and I love this topic. I think when it comes to young children, so when we talk about that age, the thing that's most important to kids at that time is that connection with their caregiver and that important person. And I think that when we have that separation for a funeral and you separate the child and they aren't able to go, I think that they can feel that sense of being left out. Especially if the entire family is going in there, back with a babysitter. I think they're going to feel that more than if they were to be present at the funeral. So I do think it's important to try to include them if possible. I know it might be really challenging as far as having a toddler in a church or in a quiet place. But I do think it's important that they feel that continued connection with their caregivers.
Gosh, I love that perspective, because I think people can feel like at this age they shouldn't be seeing this, they shouldn't be a part of this, but let's think about really what they're seeing. They're seeing a group of family members that they love all come together to celebrate someone's life, and there might be tears and there might be sadness, but what you're showing that toddler, that young preschooler, is that that's a part of life too, so I love that you are thinking about including them.
Yeah, and I think, they are already struggling to show emotion, and sometimes they don't know how to do it. And so I think bringing them into that environment and that atmosphere, they may see that it's okay to be sad or be upset because they're still struggling with how to do that.
Yeah, totally. So let's move up to the older preschool, young school age. And I would start out, I think, just by addressing what's happened with the death in the family. So we know that kids start to understand death around 6 years old if they're, kind of following typical development. And that's kind of that age where you can really start to talk about, do you want to be there? This is what it's going to look like. Let me tell you who's going to be there, what you'll experience, so that they can help you come together and make the decision. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that. I love the preparation aspect and letting them know this is kind of what it's going to look like. Do you want to be a part of it?
Mm,
And I also love the idea of asking them, well, what do you think a funeral is? What do you think you do at a funeral?
yeah.
And kind of get where they're at. And you can kind of see if they're understanding or if they're kind of out in left field, or maybe they have some misconceptions about what a funeral is. And then you can kind of help correct them.
Yeah, I think that's an important part that you're bringing up is not just showing up to the event and kind of expecting them to go with it because they're going to have a lot of questions formulating. And then also, prepare them for visually what they'll see. So is there going to be a casket there? Are there going to be flowers there? Are there going to be benches? Are we going to be outside? And just pointing out those small details can really help a child conceptualize what they're going to be experiencing.
And I love the idea of, depending on the age of the child and the relationship to the person who's died, if they're able to make any choices or help in the preparation. So if
Yeah.
they're having, pictures put out and you say, oh, would you like to select like a picture of this person that you want to show everyone? So then they get to have a little choice or a little piece of it as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good idea. Yeah, it's almost like having something to bring with them, right? They're not going to be able to bring their Nintendo DS or something like that, but they can bring something that's meaningful with the relationship that they had with that person.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think giving them a job or a responsibility is always helpful in these types of circumstances where people are sort of unsure maybe what to do or what to do, with a child at a funeral.
So let's move into how far in advance, or what's one thing a parent should think about before they talk about going to a funeral and the death of someone they love.
I think just making sure they know it's okay to ask questions
Mm,
before or after and kind of leaving that open. You would hate for a child to be really confused about something but feel like they can't ask because everyone's really sad.
yeah.
So I think that's important. And I also think focusing on any feelings or emotions that you might have surrounding this experience are okay. So if you're sad, it's okay. If you're angry, it's okay. Crying is okay. It's okay if you don't want to cry,
Yeah.
or don't feel like crying. And just letting them know that any emotion that they're feeling is fine and questions are always welcome.
Yeah. I love that. And considering um, kiddos may have some emotional reactions, and then there are going to be some kids on the other side of the spectrum that really aren't processing what's happening and are going to go play and mommy, I want a snack, and that's also a really normal response. And I think
Yes.
that check in at the end of like, a lot of us were crying. If you have questions about that later, come ask mommy. We can talk about it. Just because we're leaving the church right now doesn't mean that we don't talk about this anymore. So, just I think it can be really scary. Like you're afraid your child's going to be so upset. And then you look at them, you're like, why aren't you crying? you know?
Yes, yes. I had a lot of kids, and like you have a hard conversation. They're like, cool, can I like go build my Legos now?
Yes.
Go for it. That's
Yeah.
totally fine.
Yes.
We know kids process through play. So if play is what they want to do, or if they want to bring a small thing to play with at the funeral, I think that that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're not understanding or that they're not sad. It just means that's how they're coping at the time.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other thoughts about this funeral topic that you want to bring up?
I think it's really important that as we get older, we let the kids make a choice. So if they have all the information and they get their questions asked, and then give them a choice of, do you want to go to the funeral or not? It's up to you. Because some kids may choose not to.
Yeah. So I think that's good to bring up. So that older age group, they have all of the information, they're processing, they understand what death means, they know what to expect, and they say, I really don't want to go. I really want to like hang out at home or hang out with this cousin. I don't want to go. How hard would that be for a parent to just say, okay?
I think it would be really challenging. And I think as a parent, you look back and you don't want them to regret any aspect of it, and you don't want to let them have that regret. But I think it can be really detrimental if a child is forced to, say, view an open casket when they don't want to, or, because For some kids, when you're a part of a funeral, it means you've got to walk in the procession in and everybody's looking at you. And for some kids, maybe that's why they don't want to go. So I think getting to the root of maybe why they don't want to go and kind of addressing it that way.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I can see like we want to teach kids to trust their inner voice, right? And if their inner voice has all the information and is still saying no, it's kind of our job to let them, go in that direction, and know that we support them.
Mm-hmm, definitely. I totally agree.
Well, thank you so much for that great input about taking a kiddo to a funeral and how to prepare them for it.
Of course. I oddly enjoy talking about it because I think it's so important. It's so important, and people are afraid to ask those questions. So
yeah, it's really scary. And I think if anything, I hope this conversation has opened up for parents. Like, don't be afraid of the hard conversations. We've given you strategies, like Lauren said, asking ahead of time what they expect, what they think it's going to be like, preparing them for the experience, having the open conversation, and meeting them where they are emotionally. And I don't think that you can go wrong in any of that.
Yes, agreed. You know your child best.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, Lauren.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, guys, so glad you're here, and we will see you back the week after next for another 12-minute talk where we piggyback off this conversation about going to funerals, and we actually talk about how to explain death and dying to kids of all ages. All right, we'll see you again soon. Thank you for listening to the Child Life On Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life On Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/Child Life On Call, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.